Welcome everyone to Kingdom of Honor. This is your host, XanMan Sebunia, along with my good buddy, the Honorable Jeff. And I told
Hello.
Jeff yesterday that I was going to have plenty of time to watch to get my wrestling watching in. Plus, I'd have some time to watch some Elimination Chamber matches. So I was going to
Oh
watch
God, I'm sorry.
the Women's Elimination Chamber, and I was going to watch AJ Styles versus um, Aleister Black. But then due to an injury I suffered yesterday, I had ended up having a little bit more time today than I expected to have. So I just kind of started watching the Elimination Chamber paper. I was just going to fast forward to those two matches. But I got to the first Elimination Chamber match, which was a tag match, and I decided to watch that. That was a mistake. Um, the sad thing is, it started off really well. It started off with the Usos versus the New Day, which is usually really good. They then entering third was Lucha House Party, and that was really exciting. And then the World Tag Team Champions came in, Miz and John Morrison. And the match became slow and plodding. And Corey Graves said, "These guys are moved like they're a well-oiled machine." No, Corey, they don't. They move like a clunky machine that hasn't been oiled in 10 damn years. I wonder why that is. And then you had Otis and Tucker come in, and as I'm trying to think of the guy's name, Metal League's partner climbed to the top of one of the chambers, one of the pods, I should say. Otis just kind of looked at him, then he looked around the ring like he didn't know what he was doing. He just kind of stood there, big and imposing, and you could see that he had no idea what he was supposed to do next. And it was just cringeworthy and awful and embarrassing for Otis himself. And then the guy that climbed on top of the pod, a couple minutes later, everybody else is gathered in the middle of the ring, and and now it turns out he's hanging from the top of the chamber, and he does a shooting star press from that position, lands on everybody else, and then his partner ends up getting pinned by heavy machinery after a compactor. And Michael Cole was going, how did nobody notice him climbing across the ring like that? And I'm thinking to myself, Cole, you're asking the wrong damn question. Why was he climbing across the ring like that? He was just climbing across, just hoping everybody else was going to be laying in the middle of the ring, ready to be shooting star pressed on top of? Because that makes a lot of sense. And then the last team is about to come in, Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode. Yay. And then we get the WWE trope from several Elimination Chambers where the heel team is afraid of the face, and so they're going to hold their pod closed as best they could. And I looked at that and I said, done, and shut off the match. Oh my God. Oh my God, Jeff, it was terrible.
First of all, did you expect anything different? We've seen the same shit over and over and over again with that company now for what, 4.5, 5 years? Well, Jesus, probably longer than that. It's just we didn't have any alternatives before that. It never changes. It's the same tired storytelling. They go after the entertainment big spots, and people stand around like morons waiting for those big spots. It just doesn't change. Now, I was going to actually watch those matches. I really was. That was my goal for tonight. But after you messaged me this afternoon and said you needed a palate cleanser, I literally just said to myself, I'm not even going to bother. Because it just there was nothing. And I still believe AJ Styles is probably the best wrestler of our generation. He's Ric Flair, he's Hulk Hogan, he's this generation's great GOAT. It's right now it's between him and probably Jericho as the best of all time. But I can't even watch him for the because of how silly everything has gotten in that company.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that. I feel really bad for Otis Dozerman because I really like the guy. I think he's super entertaining. I think he's got that kind of personality that really could push him far. I could see him as a major star for WWE in a couple years' time, maybe 2 to 5 years' time. But he just like completely lost his place in that match. I don't know if he got overwhelmed by the moment, if it was being in his first elimination chamber, what the hell it was, but clearly he had no idea what he was supposed to do next, and I felt really bad for the guy. And then he had to do that stupid trope about the babyface going after the heel and the heel doing everything he can to stay inside the pod. I mean, come on. We've seen it 800 times over the last 5, 10 years, and it's just so old and so tired, and it was just so dumb. Oh, and then like I
It's
said,
just,
I started fast forwarding, so I was like, this possibly can't go in like another 10 minutes. So 10 minutes later, I pressed play, and Otis is picking up Ziggler, who he was after in the first place, and he finally gets his hand on Dolph Ziggler, and you know what he does with him, Jeff?
I don't want to ask.
He guillotines him on the top rope and then backs away. And then I fast forward another 10 minutes, and the match is finally over. So after the bullshit that I saw, 20 more minutes went by. 20.
Oh,
It was. Oh, I feel bad for people that were there in attendance. I feel bad for people that kept watching that. And it's that match. It's like I said, it started off so promising, and then it went downhill so quickly.
it frustrates me because I know there's a lot of people that still enjoy WWE. Obviously, it's the number one wrestling company on the planet, but I just can't get into the silliness anymore. I can't get into the tired storylines, the consistently shooting for the big spots just to pop the crowd with no storytelling to get to those spots. It's just it's maddening for me. It really truly is.
And I was going to talk about this match last of the Elimination Chamber matches, but since we're talking about, but actually, that what you just said kind of leads into the women's match a little bit. So there was a spot in the men's match where I mean I already mentioned the spot about um, Metallique's partner. What the hell's Metallique's partner's name? Do you remember? It bugs me.
I have
I
no
can't
clue.
remember. All right. Well, anyway,
I
the
honestly,
Lucha House Party number two. Then I mentioned how he did that. How he climbed to the top of the pod and then he climbed across the ring. Well, before that, both he and Metalik were up on the pod earlier in the match, fighting against both members of the New Day and then also against the Usos at different times. And so we already had a lot of on top of the pod stuff. And I really was gonna um, harshly criticize the women for doing the same thing. But then I thought after I saw what happened in the rest, because Sarah Logan climbed up there and she was fighting with Ruby Riott on top of Liv Morgan's pod, and and it was kind of a cool way, I guess, to have all three of the former Riot Squad members in the same shot. But I was like, guys, we just saw people fighting on top of the pod an hour and a half ago. Do you really have to do it again? It was just like I felt about um, the men's War Games match having bringing in the weapons after we'd already seen in the women's match. Um,
right.
but it was just like you got to know what the other people are going to do and then not repeat the same spot. But then when I saw how the match progressed, I was like, well, they kind of had to get everything in they could get in before Shayna Baszler kicked everybody else's ass.
Yeah, that's one match I may end up actually watching that one because I've heard that was really good. But I also heard the men's tag team match was pretty good too. So I don't know if I can trust my source. Um,
Well,
the
it
Lucha
probably
House Party,
I would say
Metalik partner.
I would say for the go ahead. Who was his partner?
It, it's either Callisto or
Lindsay
Lince
Dorado.
Dorado.
Lindsay Dorado is
Okay.
yeah. It just came to me as you were saying that. Um, the the thing with the tag match is I'm sure if you're following WWE, it was a lot better than what I saw. You know, but coming in as a fan, as a casual fan watching it, It was not. So let's make a comparison. Like if you and I had not been following Ring of Honor for the last couple of months, right? But we watched those
Right.
two shows last weekend, and we thoroughly enjoyed ourselves watching those two shows. I mean, they had their moments that we didn't like. They had their weak spots, but all in all, every match on that card had something to recommend it on both nights. Here,
Right.
but here I watched three matches on Elimination Chamber, and I find weaknesses in all three of them that make me not want to recommend them. I mean, for the women's match, I would say start watching when Shayna Baszler comes in, because you didn't miss anything before that, really. You know, for the tag team match, I would say the first three, when the first three teams are in there, it's great, and then everything slows down when Miz and Morrison get in. And I'm not trying to, and it's not Miz and Morrison's fault that they've been stuck together again, and they have no chemistry anymore. And they're both better as singles performers than they are as tag performers. But it is Miz's fault that he's gained like 10 pounds of muscle mass and he no longer knows how to move. It's just like when Bad Luck Fale lost that 60 pounds a couple of years ago and he didn't know how to move anymore. I feel like Miz is slower and clunkier than he used to be just because he's gained that weight on and he hasn't had a chance to work out how to use it yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does
And
completely.
but it was them, and then like I said, Doze not knowing what he was supposed to be doing that really kind of brought that match down. But and then the AJ Alistair match was really really good, and then that ending happened, and it was just you know do we have to do that thing where somehow magically the Undertaker's going to know that the guy in the match is going to make fun to taunt him and make fun of him during the match, so then he can just magically appear and attack and cost the guy the match? Do we have to do that thing in 2020? Apparently we do.
Right.
And the thing with that is that AJ better beat Undertaker at WrestleMania, or there's no point to this feud at all. It helps nobody at all if Undertaker completely dominates AJ at every turn and then wins the feud.
Well, it unfortunately would be a lot like the MJF Cody feud, where Cody kind of dominated I'm sorry, yeah, Cody kind of dominated at every turn, and then just to pull a fast one, they let MJF win the match. I feel like even there they lost way too much because of it.
Oh,
And
they lost. Wait. What did they lose because of it?
I just I went into the match thinking MJF didn't have a chance in hell, and then yeah, he got the pinfall, but it was because of his ring that was magically he just remembered after getting his ass kicked for 20 minutes. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still having my issues with that. Even though MJF won the match, I still don't feel like he is actually a equal of Cody because of how he was punked throughout the entire feud leading up to it, and then it took a cheap shot to win.
My problem with the finish is that Cody hits Crossroads, right? Goes for the pin,
Two in a row.
pulls MJF up. Then he hits a second Crossroads. Then he pulls him up, and before he can hit the third Crossroads, there's MJF hitting Cody in the face with the ring. So it's like those two Crossroads with your Cody's finishing move, and have won him championships, don't knock MJF for a loop? Really? It would have made a lot more sense if Wardlow had jumped up on the apron and distracted Cody and given MJF a moment to recover, rather than it just happening like that. It's little timing things like we talked about with Hangman versus Jericho. That timing doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
Okay, and the other big criticism of that match, of course, was the blood spot. So
Yeah, it must have been because his shoe was off and a toenail cut him or something.
yeah, and
Something
like that should never happen off camera. So
No. I mean, a disaster kick has never even come close to cutting anybody open, but magically MJF got cut open.
yeah, Cody should have ran him into the steel
I,
ring post. He should have ran him into the bell. Something, you know.
there should have been something that was a little bit more explainable
Right.
than just a silly little disaster kick that wasn't even full force, kind of hit him on the shoulder, and he had a shoe off. So there was really nothing. There was cushion. Nothing that could have. There was nothing that could have actually cut him open.
You know, you could even make the argument that MJF cut himself open so that blood was going in his eyes and he couldn't see that stupid fucking tattoo.
I will say his promo was pretty top notch.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when he brought in the tattoo. And running down Lucha Express and all that, or the Jurassic Express and all that too. He had probably the best promo he's had in a long time.
I think he actually called them Lucha Express, didn't he?
I think so. He called him Lucha Boring and Marco Growth Stunt, or Stunted Growth. So, yeah, there was a lot to like about that promo.
Yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of that.
I thought last week's AEW was amazing. It was one of the better ones they've had in a while, and I think it would have been. It almost should have been flip-flopped with the week before, because the week before I thought was kind of a weak go-home show, and they bounced back nicely with this one. It was almost like every storyline that they did on this week's episode or last week's episode would have made more sense had it been on the go-home show.
Well, the problem with the go-home show was that they flipped things around. You know, if they'd had the Iron Man match finish the show off, I think, and they started with the weigh-in, I think we would have felt a lot differently about it than we felt about it.
Yeah, I think so too. But I also think that the other matches they had didn't make much sense for a go-home show too, considering they pretty much featured people that weren't going to be on the pay-per-view. The week after the show, they spent a lot of time on the Inner Circle against Moxley and Darby Allin. They spent, that would have been a great spot for an MJF promo, kind of like that, leading into it. It almost felt like they should have flip-flopped the shows, in my mind.
Okay.
But hey, what do I know?
It was interesting to see Colt Cabana debut for AEW, because now it seems like he's working for NWA, Ring of Honor, and AEW.
Is he working for Ring of Honor?
I have no idea, dude. That's what I said. It seems like it.
He hasn't been doing commentary in about 5-6 months. He hasn't, been on any of the shows in quite a while. Is he still the national champion?
He was on one of the recent shows, wasn't he?
Not that I saw.
I think he was booked for one of the shows we didn't watch.
Possibly, but I know
and he was at Final Battle against Alex Shelley.
Right, and I think that was the last time he was there.
Okay, that's certainly possible.
Because I haven't seen him or even heard his name with Ring of Honor since. In NWA, I don't know what's going on there, but I clearly he must not be the NWA national champion anymore.
I think the national champion is Pirate Guy. That was his name.
Pirate Guy?
Yeah, everybody was saying he was like a pirate guy, because he was in that Pirates of the Caribbean knockoff movie, and
Damian Sandow or whatever his name is now.
Yeah,
Aaron Stevens.
Aaron Stevens, yeah.
Okay. Weird. I wonder how they got to that.
I believe he won the national championship in that triple threat match at the whatever that show was we didn't watch.
Well, considering he couldn't win a match, that's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
I wonder how they got to that. Actually, you know what? I don't care how they got to that. It means nothing to me.
It was kind of weird to see the librarian on this show. I was actually thinking, I'd actually thought it earlier in the day. I was like, is librarian even still with AEW? And then she shows up on this show against your girl, Bianca Swole.
Oh, that was the weak spot of the night. I can't Yeah, and they had both librarians, and both librarians got their asses kicked. So,
as they should.
yeah, because I don't know. I wish Peter Avalon had a better gimmick. I think he has a lot more talent than they give him credit for.
I just think he'd be a great manager. I don't think he's great as a. I mean, and don't get me wrong, he's a very good talker and he can do his job in the ring. But I just think with his size, even in this day and age, with his size, being a major a star in a major promotion is not going to happen for him.
No, and I agree with that, and it's too bad because I think he's got all the talent in the world, and I loved him in his NWA and even his brief stint in um, Impact, but I just don't feel like he's being utilized right.
No, I don't think he is either. But whether he ever is or not is, I guess, up for debate. I mean, are they ever going to give up on this librarian thing that nobody likes?
I don't think they're going to, unfortunately.
Well, we can always hope, right?
Yes, that we can. We can always hope. Uh,
Do
and
you go ahead?
I was going to say, there was a lot to like about last week. I like the fact that they continue the Matt Jackson, Adam Page storyline. I like the way that uh, Inner Circle presented themselves throughout the night. There was a lot to like about the show.
I love the cowboy shit that Hangman did on that show. It was so good.
Right, with coming out, and I was gonna say was it? I don't know if it was last week or the week before that. The one thing I felt was missing from his drunk storyline that they're going with was that he never did the Scott Hall stumble to the ring. When they ran that drunk storyline with Scott Hall, he would come out holding a glass of whiskey and he would stumble to the ring, and I felt like um, they never capitalized on that with Adam Page, and they kind of started it when he stumbled out of the back on his way to the ring. I like the way he came to the ring and he was just like, hold on, I got to put my beer down. And he sets his beer up and doesn't spill it and all that stuff. I'm enjoying the way they're going with this storyline.
And I love the way that Matt comes at him and like he looks at him, he's like, "Are you and I good?" And he gets a finger right in the face, and
Right.
Heyman walks off, and Jim and Ross is like, "I don't get this at all, folks. I mean, he comes out and saves the day, and then he's so acerbic when he leaves, and I'm like, you don't get it at all. He's still Matt Jackson's friend. He doesn't want to see him get his ass kicked, except by him.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's a very complex
I
storyline, but I'm really enjoying it because it's like Heyman is still he doesn't want to see Matt or Nick get hurt. Really, he just doesn't. But he's still going to stand up for them when the situation calls for it, and that's a bit of a growth for him over the last few weeks. Because if you remember, there was that week where the Inner Circle was stopping everybody down, and Kenny came out to help, but Hangman was nowhere to be found.
well,
And
and
now,
it's
and now,
kind of it's
go ahead.
it's kind of that whole we fight like brothers. We'll fight each other, but if anyone else messes with us, we're gonna fight. And, we're not gonna let them. We're gonna beat them down. We're gonna team up together and then go back to hating each other. It's the perfect brother storyline that has been told in every other brother combination in the history of wrestling.
I wonder if the spot at the end was to kind of put some separation between Jericho and Moxley. That because with that spot at the end, if Moxley's out for a few weeks and they do blood and guts without him, and with the Inner Circle against the Elite instead, it makes a lot of sense because Moxley should not be partnered up with anybody at this point, really, other than Darby.
Well, I can't. Which version of the Elite are they going to go with? Would they have Page and Omega in there with Cody and the Bucks? It would
Well,
have to. It's got to be. It's got to be a 5-on-5.
hmm see that's the
But
thing that I think is interesting is that they could do Cody, Dustin, um, what was I going to say? Cody, Dustin.
Matt Page and Hangman,
That's the thing is
or
that
Matt Page and Omega.
that's where the drama is. Do you do where maybe Hangman's on the outside looking in and he gets pissed off about that too, where it ends up being the Young Bucks Cody, Dustin, and Omega are the ones in blood and guts the the inner circle, and then Paige's like, wait a minute, guys, I'm the one that saved the day. I'm the one that keeps winning the tag team titles, but I don't get chosen for this match. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that would put a little more animosity between him and the Elite. I'm not. I'm more thinking that if anyone's going to turn heel, it should be the rest of the Elite. Just that kind of fits the whole storyline. Cody becoming part of this feud after he basically swore everybody, including his own brother, off, a month, 2 months ago, is a little bit twisted. It just
what did I miss?
When he basically said that he's got to do all this by himself, his brother and the Bucks there, and feuds or blood feuds with the Inner Circle, and Kenny is doing whatever he's doing with Pac, and he just basically said he's going to do it by, and even his own wife is messed up with her own thing. He pretty much came out and cut a promo when he started his feud with MJF, saying he's just the only person he can count on is himself.
Yeah, but then
I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
I get why he came out and protected his brother, but we talked about this a couple of weeks ago that he's the one that kind of quit the Elite. Granted, Paige did it on the web series, but Cody did it on national TV.
That's very true. Trying to think so with this whole storyline with Jake the Snake Roberts, and his client, it could actually end up being that Cody has business elsewhere, so it actually ends up being Paige and Omega, Young Bucks, and Dustin against the Inner Circle.
Which would make more sense.
It would. I agree.
Would make a lot more sense. And then you can get the tension between Matt and Paige throughout the match.
Yeah. I really think Paige, thinking about it a little bit more and talking through it here, I really think that Paige has to be part of Blood and Guts, because then you can still have that same drama as him being left out, because it could be that, no, I want to start the match. No, I'm in next. No, I'm coming in next, and always saving him to be the last guy. Or to even be the fourth guy, and then he can't even be the cleanup there.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of storylines that actually makes a lot more sense than having Moxley teaming with Dustin and Darby, which is what I was talking about last week. Because then you got to find 2 more partners to go along with them, and there's always going to be. I think your scenario makes a little more sense where you have the Elite against the Inner Circle.
I think so too. Put out as maybe on the table and just got his completely cut by Inner Circle.
Right. Yeah, and the other part of review that I really enjoyed was the Revelation Brothers and Pac as a mid-card.
I'm sorry, the revelation of what?
Revelation of Pac and Lucha Brothers being a mid-card death triple. Death triple.
Yeah, Death Triangle is a really cool name for a stable. Why all of a sudden are these guys helping each other? Well, now we know, right?
Right, and they're kind of I think makes a lot of sense. It helps 3 guys who are really directionalists right now into feuds and driving storylines going forward.
Ray Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. are direct. You should never have a way to use those 3 guys.
Yeah, to have to put them into but I do like the potential stable has. But no stables and one face stable that's not even a real stable.
Yeah, I just don't want it to become like NJPW where it's all stables.
I don't. The thing about NJPW is they don't really use the side of Suzuki-gun and LA Day. The stables are just non-existent. Yeah, they're members for tag team matches, but ultimately they don't really help each other.
The only one I would say that's true of is Chaos, because Bullet Club definitely help each other.
Oh yeah. I totally forgot about Bullet Club. But now, Chaos and
because Because now let's take the stables that
Tanahashi's
we have.
stable doesn't.
We have Best Friends. We have Death Triangle. We have SCU. We have the
Weren't you
Elite.
the one that said that 3 people can't be a stable? Didn't
Yeah,
we have that argument a while ago?
yeah, but I mean, clearly that's what they keep doing these days. Um,
Right.
then you have, I guess, we have Inner Circle obviously and Dark Order, but the Elite. I guess you could debate whether they're actually a stable or not, because they're really loosely aligned. It's not like they've ever had a united front. They don't go out there. You know, Kenny and the Young Bucks are the closest that they've been to being a stable, but are they really? It's kind of a wishy-washy stable at best. You know.
Right.
Um, and then you have the Nightmare Collective, with if they even still exist. So
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but that's kind of a disaster. Because it just, now that Brandy's back to being face, are they, like you said, are they even a stable anymore?
I have no idea. And then I guess you have Strong Hearts whenever they feel like showing up.
And Chima is now in MLW after having his non-existent tag team in that Tag Team Royal Rumble.
That's impressive. That's right. Chima's wrestling for the MLW World Championship.
At their 100th episode.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
Right?
So sad.
Yeah, that is pathetic.
So
To think we used to love that company.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that right. AEW. I touched on this briefly already, but I think it does a little bit more in depth than I mentioned. With it is AEW announced, I think it was like Monday, that there was going to be a major superstar debuting for them on Dynamite.
Right.
And of course, I didn't watch Dynamite the night it was on. You had watched a little bit of it and kind of read the results, and you told me it's going to be a former WWE guy that you never would have expected, because I never would have expected it. And it ended up being Jake the Snake Roberts, and you were totally right about that. But I got to say, I ain't mad at it. Jake is still one of the best guys on the mic. He really, um, he played a dick really well, and it's intriguing setting up whatever's coming for the future. So I mean, my best guess for his clients are either the American Psycho or Luke Harper / Brody Lee. So
Right. I mean, there was some things about his promo that I thought his promo was choppy. It wasn't as good as he's had the ability to be. He kind of straddled the line between face and heel and making us want to cheer for him, but then cheer against him. I wish he would have at least said something, even if it was a quick crowd poppy moment, about getting back into the ring for the first time in 20 years or whatever, when he was feeling the ring ropes and smelling his hands and smelling the turnbuckles and all that stuff. That part seemed out of character for what he was going for. And even if he'd done that quick crowd popping moment, got it out of the way and then went off on his spiel, I think would have made a little more sense.
yeah, probably. But I still enjoyed it. It actually it kind of brought back memories of how great Jake was in the past.
Yeah, and he, like you and I talked about it after the fact, that he's just one of those guys that can just talk. He doesn't shout, he doesn't scream, he doesn't cut a normal wrestling promo. Like even Cody gets in his moments where, on the mic as he is, gets in his moments where he's not talking to you, he's yelling at you. Jake Roberts and Arn Anderson are probably best in the history of wrestling at just talking to you. Mm-hmm. And I think I want to see those two, just even for nostalgia's sake, just one more time, the two of them on the mic together.
Well, I think it's going to happen.
Well, it has to happen with the way they're building this story.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I think it's going to happen. So, anything else for Dynamite?
Not really, no. It
right?
was a good episode. I'm actually looking forward to this week's.
Yeah, I think 2 out of the last 3 weeks they've had their no, I would say 3 out of the last 4 weeks they've had their best. They've had three of their best episodes yet.
Well, they just keep figuring it out. Like every single week, the negatives that we have end up not being there anymore, and it's getting harder and harder to pick apart things. I mean, right now, I'm just literally picking apart tiny little things like Jake Roberts saying, "Hey, I wish you would have done this." But the reality is, I have nothing bad to say about this last week's episode. I felt like the inner circle's presence was great. I felt like the Cody Jake Roberts bit was great. The matches were good. I enjoyed Chuck Taylor against Pac might have been one of my favorite matches of the night, even though it wasn't anything super spectacular. It's just hard to say anything they did are good.
Um, I'm gonna say this, and I don't want you to take it the wrong way because it's I'm gonna compare it to the WWF, not the
Oh,
WWE.
please don't. Please don't.
It
Please don't. No.
it felt like an outstanding episode of Raw from the Monday Night Wars from when the Attitude Era was going on. You had that great promo thing from Moxley that was a lot like an Austin promo. You had Jericho coming out there and getting on him, which was a lot like The Rock when he was in the Corporation. Then you had that great ending with the powerbomb through the table. You had the moments of suspense during the night. I really felt like in a very good way, it felt a lot like a Raw from that time frame when Raw was.
Yeah, and I still compare them a lot to WCW from like '96 to '98, where everything ends up in a beatdown at the end of the show, and you've
Yeah,
got that heel stable standing tall at the end of the show, which is what we dealt with the NWO for a couple years.
yeah, that's a good point because I think the first time I saw somebody get powerbombed from a stage through a table, it was Eric Bischoff getting powerbombed by Kevin Nash. So
Right. Yeah, and now and it's great. I mean, I like the way that they end the shows. It reminds me of the nostalgia period that we had before, but and it's so much different than just wrestling today that I enjoy it, but at the same time, it really does have that late '90s feel to it. So if you're a fan of that era, you're getting great wrestling now.
exactly. So if you're a fan of that era, you're getting great wrestling now. Whereas if you go back and watch those Raws or those Nitros, a lot of times the matches on there were not anything special. It was those moments that made it. And now I think that the guys at EW, Cody, the Bucks, Kenny, Tony Khan, have found a way to blend the two things together. The great moments that we had in the past, along with just some absolutely fantastic wrestling.
They're doing a good job of keeping shows to 5, 6 matches, not and letting the matches tell stories, and then having the shenanigans say for 15, 20 minutes total in the show, as opposed to they're going more towards that WCW feel, where WCW had the same kind of formula. They had, in a 3-hour show, they would have 6 or 7 matches that they would let tell a decent story. Of course, they had their squash match here and there, but their main events, their top of the hour matches were usually 15, 20, 25 minutes long, and they told their stories, and then they ended the night with the shenanigans. And I think AEW is kind of has that same feel, where it's got the New Japan style of actual storytelling in the ring mixed with the little bit of shenanigans to keep the American audiences happy.
The other thing I think that AEW is doing better than WCW did is, and when I get on Jim Ross's commentary at times on this show, but what they're doing better is if you watch those old WWE Nitros and Thunders, they were always talking about what's going to happen. They could have there could be a great 20-minute match going on between Humberto Guerrera and Dean Malenko, and throughout the whole thing they're talking about what Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash are going to do at the end of the show.
The
The
other
announcers the
the
announcers
other
are always
thing
present during the matches here.
the other thing I think they're doing very well is they're doing a good job of getting over the younger talent. They do a good job of getting Darby Allin over, of getting Guevara over, of getting, these younger guys who are not names in the, I wouldn't say necessarily the wrestling world, because the wrestling world knows and loves these people, but they're doing a good job of getting over people that are not as well known. Where WCW was so hung up on their top 5 or 6 guys that that's all they would talk about for 3 hours.
Absolutely, and when you say they're doing a great job, I think the booking is doing a great. Characters themselves are doing a great job, but the announcers are also selling how great they are.
Yeah, and
the announcers made it a point of. I think it was Excalibur made it a point of, when they were talking about Paige and they were talking about Darby Allin and they were talking about Moxley, how strong they were. I think it was Excalibur that made a point to say, and look how great Guevara was. He almost stole the show. So.
Right. Yeah, and they do great. That's one thing I'll give them definite credit for, is they do a great job of talking these guys up, and they're in the ring focusing on the greatness of these guys, because let's face it, they do some talent on that roster, and even a guy like Darby Allin, who I even knew nothing about, but which isn't surprising because he's only been in wrestling 2 or 3 years. They're doing a very, very good job of getting these guys in fronts, getting them over the best they can, and they're going to end up making the few stars of this business. Where in 5, 6, 7 years, Paige, MJF, Guevara, and Darby Allin are going to be the guys leading the charge. It's not going to be Cody and the Bucks anymore. It's not going to be Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt that they're leaning on. It's going to be these young guys who are in their early 20s that are now starting to come of age and become mega superstars.
And the amazing thing is that they're doing that without a mid-card championship. These guys are wrestling in the mid-card. They're having great matches, and they're making the personal stakes matter instead of having another championship that would get watered down in a 2-hour format.
And they're not sacrificing anybody. Like, typically, when you go back and you watch...
they're sacrificing Joey Janela and your boy Sean Spears.
Yeah, but we talked about these guys before. They just don't have... They connect with... Well, Joey Janela especially connects with crowds, but he just doesn't have that defining it factor yet. And as far as what I mean by sacrificing guys, if you look back through the 90s... you got to kind of throw out 97 to 99 because you had 4 or 5 guys kind of rise to prominence at the same time. But then 2000s, outside of the SmackDown 6, 2000s was dominated by 2 or 3 guys. The early teens were dominated by 3 or 4 guys. And in order for the prominence, Daniel Bryan got kind of cut down and taken a back seat, so that CM Punk could rise, and then Daniel Bryan had to rise after that. What AEW is sacrificing and MJF so that Darby Allin can rise. They're getting all 3 of these guys from time, kind of like Triple H and The Rock did in the late 90s.
That is an excellent point. I really like that. So we're 45 minutes in. Do we want to move on to Ring of Honor?
I think we're going to have to. We've only got about 15 minutes left. So,
what a shock that something that we thought we would.
Yeah, and that never happens.
So, guys, I just talked about a little bit of heard last week's show. You know how much Jeff and I loved the back-to-back nights of Ring of Honor. 2 weekends ago, I should say. Well, it's happening again this coming weekend. This coming Friday is ROH 18th anniversary show. And then on Saturday night, they're doing a really cool concept called ROH Past vs. Present. I'm expecting greatness on Friday night and just really entertaining stuff on Saturday night.
Well, the top 6 matches on Friday night look to be just amazing, to be honest. I'm not really sold on the bottom 3 matches, mainly because I can't buy into Session Moth Martina, PCO, and... Eli Isom versus Bully Ray just doesn't seem like a blow-off. We're not going to get an Eli Isom win because Bully Ray's not going away. So those first might...
Before, I understand why you meant that way. But we were also talking about, like, so it wouldn't shock me if Bully Ray is out and then he somehow joins WWE, like on their commentary team or something like that coming into WrestleMania.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know. It seems like this is a story that should play out until Final Battle if things are being booked correctly, which lately they seem like Ring of Honor has kind of turned the table and they're starting to book things correctly.
Well, yes and no, because their second biggest show of the year, for WWE, their biggest show of the year is WrestleMania. Their second biggest show is SummerSlam, right? For
Right.
for Ring of Honor, their show of the year's Final Battle, and their second biggest show is the anniversary show.
Yeah,
So,
true.
I mean, if you're not going to do it at Final Battle, and they didn't at Final Battle, then why are they? Can they really build up Eli Isom versus Bully Ray for an entire year like they did with Bully Ray and Flip Gordon?
I think they could have. I think this match might be in the unless it's going to be a competitive match between the two and Bully Ray, and maybe they could. I think maybe if it depends on what they do with Eli Isom. If they're trying to build him to become a top of the card star like they did with Flip Gordon, then yeah, okay. But if this is just a blow, then I think a win by Isom at this point to push Bully Ray out does nothing for Isom. He needs to be in a long program fighting against Bully Ray and showing his toughness like Flip Gordon did to actually rise in the card, or he's just going to be stuck in a mid card. Yeah, he got there, but who cares?
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Ray loses to Eli Isom, he will be out of Ring of Honor.
He'll quit.
Bully Ray has said that the next time he loses a match in Ring of Honor, he's done with the promotion because he has an ironclad contract, but he'll quit if anybody can beat him.
Yeah, and I just think in the storyline, I think it's too soon.
As a straight up singles match, but I guarantee that's not going to be the case.
Not with Bully Ray, but I just think it's too soon to pull that trigger and let Eli Isom beat him.
Yeah, it probably is.
I mean, and then when you look at the rest of Friday night, Jeff Cobb versus Slex, that could be just an outstanding match. I like the dealer's choice for corner survival match with Kenny King and Bateman in there against the two big hosses, Taylor and Moth. Briscoes versus Castle and Hendry looks like a great match. That tag team match with Skrull and Gordon against Gresham. What are they calling them? The Foundation? Gresham?
What?
The Foundation? Yeah, with Lethal and Gresham, and then Dragon Lee versus Bandito. If these two perform like they can, that's going to be the match of the year written all over it. And I love the fact that that PCO's bid for anything to do with the championship match is gone, and it's Roosh versus Haskins.
I think it's gonna be a fantastic match, but more importantly, I think somebody could look at this match and go, Mark Haskins versus Roosh is for the second biggest ROH show of the year. I say yes, motherfucker, because that's what Ring of Honor does. If you look at their history, this is what they do. They get everybody gets a shot at that world title, and Mark Haskins has been outstanding for them for the last year.
And anybody that is questioning Mark Haskins' ability has not been watching Mark Haskins for the last 2 years. He has been amazing. He was great in Defiant. He was great in Rev Pro. Touchdown in a year and a half ago. He's been amazing. He is probably the best choice to challenge Roosh at this. And then you get that face versus heel thing too, because is Roosh, I guess La Facción Ingobernables is a heel faction, right?
Yes.
And they've got the top two champions. They've got them back-to-back nights. And then you've got the storyline with Kenny King is, if he wins that dealer's choice, what's he going for? Are they going to reveal another faction member to go after the tag belts? Is he going to actually have his brothers in the faction? There's a lot of different stories that can work out in this. The only one that doesn't make much sense in that top six matches, even though I think it's going to be a great match, is Briscoes versus Castle and Henry.
Yeah, I think it's just a match booked to be a great match. I don't think there's a storyline going into it. But look at these top six matches, standing show.
Yeah, also,
outstanding.
once we get past that women's match, I think everything else on this card is just going to be lights out for the rest of the night.
Yeah,
Everyone
and
has a chance to steal the show.
absolutely. Um, yeah, I am really looking forward to Friday night.
Saturday night, I could give or take. It's kind of a nostalgia feel. I don't. I'm kind of looking forward to the Generation Next versus Villain Enterprise, although Generation Next wasn't that Matt Nick's title when they were in Impact.
Generation Me.
Generation Me, okay, yeah, because Matt Sydal versus and Alex Shelley versus Skrull and Gordon could be a great match, and then the Briscoes against each other. The rest is just kind of nostalgia's sake. On here that I'm really pining to see, but at the same time, it could be a fun night because it'd be fun to watch these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be a fun and nostalgia. I don't think it's gonna be a great show, but I think it's gonna be a fun show and entertaining show. So I mean, I think that we've got one night full of drama and outstanding, performances and great wrestling and gravitas. And then and then next night is just all about nostalgia and just fun. I think actually it's a very good pairing of shows.
I mean, Doug Williams, he's got to be in his 50s, mid to late 50s now, doesn't he? He was old in WCW. He was even, oh no, I'm sorry, older and old in Impact when he was made his first go around. And then we just saw him on one of the shows from 2011 against Cole Cabana, and he was old there. Now we're looking another 9 years later, and he's going up against John Gresham, which Gresham has been.
That was Cole Cabana, my friend.
Wasn't it?
No,
Who was it?
Taylor.
Dave Taylor. You're right. You're right. So Doug Williams is still the Impact guy that was teaming with Magnus, or Nick Aldis as he's known now.
But Doug Williams was on the first match to crown a Ring of Honor World Champion, so it's really cool that he's on this show. And I think if you're going to have him on the show, there's nobody better to pair him with than Jonathan Gresham.
No, because they're both technicians, and I mean Doug Williams was. I remember when he first debuted in TNA, and they were interviewing Nick Aldis about him, and he was talking about what an honor it was to be paired with Doug Williams because of what he meant to British wrestling.
Right.
And I like the pairing of Homicide and Brody King, but I think that Sydal and Shelley versus Skrull and Gordon and the Briscoes those are the two matches to look forward to on two.
How's Redwood again?
Well, geez, it's been 10 years. I
think the Pitbulls versus Ray Horus and Bandito is going to be fun too.
Yeah, I never saw Ricky Reyes, so I guess I don't know much about him. He's one of the people on this card, and John Waiters are the two that I don't really have much of a history with, so I don't know what to expect out of them.
I'm trying to think of the name of the team, but I think it was the No Remorse Corps. Roderick Romero and Roderick Strong, Rocky Romero, and Ricky Reyes. And that was a really strong.
Yeah, that was before my time. So that was before my too busy watching.
You're older than dirt.
It was during that time. I was too busy into TNA and into WWE.
Gotcha.
I was watching Christian Cage rule TNA and bring along AJ Styles, who had been now in his third reset.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool if they intersplice some stuff in this show too, like old clips of things happening.
Can they though? Can they before 2011? Most of these guys on the show were from before 2011 in Ring of Honor, so it might be difficult with this.
As long as they don't show any other theme music, they'll be fine. They own all the rights to the footage. The problem is they haven't taken the time to scrub out the music they didn't have the rights to use.
Yeah. Well, and when Sinclair bought it, did they buy the footage, or did they just the rights to show some of these people?
They bought the footage because if you look at Honor Club even, they've got old matches on there, like in like those collections. It's just that,
Okay.
or they'll have like these some of these matches to watch. It's just they can't do the music, like they can't do Cult of Personality by Living Color when CM Punk comes out, for instance, or
Right.
or they can't do Final Countdown when Daniel Bryan comes out.
Because I know when WWE when they buy an old promotion, they buy the library too. And I
Yeah,
guess I just didn't know if Sinclair did that too.
they did. They're just too cheap to hire somebody to scrub out all the music, or they're really slow at it. One of the two.
Well, didn't we give them 12 months to live 3 months ago?
We did, but it seems like they've jump started themselves at this.
Well, and they seem to be signing some decent talent again. Slex is a future star. Um, I would love to see a guy like Alex Hammerstone make his way to Ring of Honor. I think he would have some great matches against Taylor and Sex and Jeff Cobb.
Yeah,
You know,
and
I,
they
unfor-
they're signing great talent, and I think they've come up with a couple of really cool factions that are Lux Faciones, Ignorable, and then the Righteous. You know,
right, and Enterprises Sans PCO is still a great faction too. And if they
PCO
are,
works
if
PCO works fine for them in a tag team setting. It's when he gets into singles matches that I have a real problem with him.
because he does the same four moves over and over and over, I believe that he can't get hurt.
And he looks as lost as a singles performer as Dozerman looked in that Elimination Chamber.
I still think one of my favorite all-time PCO moments was when he and Brody King were in a tag match. And I forget who they were against. I thought it might have been the Briscoes. But when he went to run the ropes and dive through the ring, and he dove through the wrong side.
Oh yeah.
And the announcers are like, I think he just short-circuited. They had no clue what was going on either. That might be my favorite piece. And I don't know if that was planned or if he's just like spur of the moment. Let's just do something stupid. But that might have been my favorite ever PCO moment.
No, your favorite PCR moment is when he won the championship when he got jump started by the car.
That is hard to. That's hard to top.
For
You know,
terribleness.
he got jump started by a car. I mean, come on. And
When they
not
couldn't
only
get the
could they just
when the guy couldn't even get the hood open and there was just jumper cables for
right,
some reason hanging outside the grill.
yeah, and then, I mean, the door was open. He couldn't go and hit the hood release latch. He had to use a crowbar to open it.
So that's
Just
how you open the hood.
right. Just Bully Ray should have got fired off the booking team for that one spot alone.
And I think he may have.
That was probably the end. Yeah, you're probably right. They looked
Yes.
at that and said, "Yeah, no."
Yeah. So this was like a great show this weekend, guys. I highly recommend you tune into it. Um, you can get Honor Club and buy it that and watch it that way. It's probably on Fight. I'm guessing it's on Fight TV for probably like $30 or something. So
Yeah, and I think if you Ring of Honor.com, you can actually order the pay-per-view too. I've got Honor Club and the full ride for it, so um, we get them all. But I think you can just get the pay-per-view too if you go to ringofhonor.com
I think so as well.
or Fight TV, because Fight TV carries all their stuff as well.
Yeah, I think Fight TV is a really cool service where if you don't want to get Honor Club, you don't, if you can buy a lot of things on Fight TV, and then you kind of have them all in that same place. So
Yeah, and, to be honest, Fight TV does have a lot of free stuff too, a lot of free independent wrestling. And the Ring of Honor weekly shows are on there, and then you get access to pretty much all of the pay-per-views, with the exception of the Big Four. And when I say Big Four, I'm including Impact in there too, because Impact has its own streaming service. So I don't think they show any of their shows on there.
no, they do.
They do? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So ROH 18th anniversary on Fight TV is $34.99.
That's not bad.
Considering that it's probably going to be close to as good as Revolution was, and it's $15 cheaper. Yeah, I would say that is not too bad.
doing the bundle package for the weekend, or are they just doing that's just for the one show?
It's just for the one show.
Okay. That's still not a bad deal. When you look at these top 6 matches, you got a chance at least 4 of these matches stealing the show, and you've got a chance if Bandito versus Dragon Lee, or he's Dragon Lee in the US, he's Rio Lee in Japan, right?
Right.
Is that how they're working it?
That's how they're working it.
Yeah, so I mean, you got a chance with that match of match of the year contender. I don't know that anything is going to top the tag match from Revolution, but that one has a solid chance as any.
If you don't want to get Honor Club, then ROH Past vs. President will cost you $10 to watch. So you're just better off getting Honor Club for a month if you're going to do that.
Yeah, because isn't Honor Club $10 a month is what they.
Yep, $10 a month,
and then you
can watch the stuff that we're covering on our other show.
It ends up being like $14 a month if you go the whole pay-per-view thing. Because they have
it's $120 for a year, so probably with taxes it comes out to $14.
Yeah, and I want to say I end up paying. I thought it was $150, but the high $150, but I think it's more like $140. I'll have to look back at my statement to find out for sure, but I want to say after tax and everything, it's about $140, which is worth it if they're putting on good shows.
Yeah, you just want to buy groceries for a week and you're good.
Dude, that's like groceries for a month and a half for me. I live alone. I have a toddler who all he eats is chicken nuggets. Groceries aren't anything for my house.
That's like my niece. But there's a really nice smokehouse here around the area here, and I couldn't convince her to get anything except for chicken strips.
And if it's me, I just I do my meal prepping. That's like buy $50. That gives me 25 meals. That's my lunches and breakfast and everything, and then I just eat a sandwich when I get home. So groceries in my house are $120. That would last me probably 3 months.
Well, there you go.
$75 worth of chicken nuggets and then sandwich bread. That's about it.
Wow, do we go off topic? All right.
So, guys,
anyway, Ring of Honor this weekend, and Jeff will tell you where you can hear us.
You're listening to us, and I didn't put it out there right away, but you're listening to us live on Spreaker.com, also on LordsofPainRadio.net, and on YouTube. If you are listening on YouTube, please go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe button, ring the notification bell. So, because we do this live thing twice a week, and we do a live YouTube exclusive show at least once a month. We're actually shooting for twice a month, so you can get quite a bit of live content on YouTube. So go ahead and please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because that helps us out in the long run. Also, patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. That might be the best thing that we can offer you, because we do a weekly a weekly exclusive show for our subscribers. You can donate for free, or you can donate and you can get access to our complete library of every show we've done on wrestling and everything else since 2014. There's a lot of content, and it's a very, very small donation. And we actually are doing a show live, or a show for Patreon tonight, covering Supercard of Honor from 2011. So that's another thing to watch out for. Those come out live every single week, or not. I'm sorry, not live, but they do get posted every single week. And our Twitter. That's where I post links to everything I can. I'm at Regi Co-op. He is at XanMan LOP. And use hashtag DAD and hashtag KOH. We put everything on there and use those hashtags, so it's the easiest way to find us.
And make sure you stay tuned to all the other LOP radio shows, which really there aren't a lot these days. But tomorrow you can hear EM's LOP Radio Adventure. Or no, wait, tomorrow is us, isn't it? Today's Tuesday. Sorry, tomorrow you can hear Dynamite After Dark. It was to go live right after Dynamite goes off the air. On Thursday is MCLOP Radio Adventure. On Friday is no longer The Right Side of the Pond. Now it's NWA The Legacy Series with Mystic and Ms. Fan, and then we'll be back with you next Tuesday talking about the ROH shows from this past weekend. 3 straight weeks of ROH from us, guys. Can you believe it?
Especially considering we wrote it off 3 months ago and we're never going to watch it again. I did not see this coming.
Never does not last as long as you think it does.
Especially not in our world.
That's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
goodbye.
G1 Climax 27. Goodbye and good night.